Hello and welcome to another episode of Anglo-Korean. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Korean names. So of course, Korean names originate from and are written in the Hangul language. This is a language that was invented by King Sejong the Great in 1443 during the Joseon dynasty. At this time, most people in Korea spoke Chinese and they were illiterate. So the king decreed that he wanted his people to be able to speak and write their own language. And this led to the creation of the Hangul or Korean language, which we know today. Now there are differences in the way that names are written and pronounced in Korea and in the West. So it's quite understandable that there's often quite a bit of confusion about how to say Korean names. So let's go through an example of this and we'll see how Korean names are constructed. To start with, there's one key difference, which is that with Korean names, the family name comes first. So let's look at this example, Hong Gil-dong. Here, Hong is the surname and Gil-dong is the first name, or the given name. So to give you a few good examples of how names are constructed in Korean, let's look at a few famous people. So firstly, if Tom Hanks' name was written in the Korean style, he would be Hanks Tom. We would have Jolie Angelina. And we would have Gaga Lady, which is a bit of a daft example really. Koreans don't usually have a middle name. However, Korean first names typically consist of 3 syllables. And this is going to add a bit of variation in the ways that they could be written in English. So in this example, we could spell Gil-dong with a space between the 2 words. However, we could also spell it without the space, Gil-dong. We could also write Gil-dong with a hyphen. This is the most common way that Koreans write their first names in English, so you'll often see hyphenated first names. As I mentioned earlier, Korean names originate from the Hangul language, which has different characters and different pronunciations in comparison to Western languages. So if we want to write Korean names in English, we have to adapt to English pronunciations. And this means there can be a bit of variation in how you might see names being written. So with our example name of Hong Gil-dong, let's go through some homophones that we might see. So far I've spelt it Hong Gil-dong. Equally though, it could be spelt a bit differently. It could be spelt Hong Gil-dong. The dong could also be spelt differently, with 2 Ds. So here we have 3 different ways in which this one name could be written, but fundamentally it's all the same person's name, Hong Gil-dong. Korean names are usually 3 syllables in total, with 1 syllable for the surname and 2 for the first name. Of course, there are always going to be exceptions to this. So sometimes Korean given names can be 2 or 4 syllables. So here's an example of a Korean name where both the surname and the given name are each just 1 syllable. Hu-gyun. But equally, the first name could be 3 syllables. So here we have the name Hu Nan-sol-hun. And it's not just given names that can vary. So the surname, while typically 1 syllable, could also be 2. So in this case we have the name Dog-go-chung. So you could have a name which has 2 syllables for the first name and also for the surname. Here, Doggo Yung Jae. Just like in English, or any other language for that matter, in Korean you can often tell the gender of an individual by their name. So here we have the name Hong Young-hee. With the name Hong Chol-soo, Chol-soo is a man's name. So just like with any language, it's just a question of becoming familiar with which names are male and which ones are female. And then you can recognize someone's gender by their name. So there you have it. Now hopefully you've learned a bit about Korean names and how they're constructed. But just before we wrap up this episode, why do you think we used Hongil-dong as an example? Well, there's a very good reason for it. Well, Hongil-dong is a very commonly used anonymous name in Korea, just like using John Doe or John Smith in somewhere like the UK or the US. So we've just used a very common name in Korea as an example here. Thank you all for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe, which will help us to generate more episodes for the future. See you next time.